Hi kiddos. All right, today we are going to be talking about shape patterns, and it is Go Math lesson 10.7, and it's pages 587 to 592. All right, I know a lot of you are like, I've done patterns my whole life. I know exactly how to do them. And you're right, you probably do, which is amazing. But some of the questions in here really are asking you to think and not just find the next shape in the pattern, but use the shapes and use the things in the pattern to help you determine what the next shape might be. So I'm going to start off by actually doing one example with you, and I'm going to do page 588 with you. So if you do not have your textbook page with you, please go and grab it. And we will be looking at page 588. So 588 says to us up in the purple box, it says draw what might be the next figure in the pattern. Okay, and we have a bunch of figures here. We have figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, figure 4, and we have to find figure 5. How can you describe the pattern? That's another question that it wants us to answer. So let's look at these figures. Take a few seconds and look at those figures and see if you can, in your head right now, if I was in front of you calling on you, what would you say to me is the pattern, or how are these figures set up to create a pattern? Look at it. Take 30 seconds and just look at it. Or if you're sitting next to somebody, talk to them about that. Have them look at it and see if they can, you guys can talk about it together. How are these shapes, circles, set up in this pattern? All right, so let's see what we have going on here. So the first question it asked me in my chart is, what do I need to find? And from my question, I need to find the next figure in this pattern. I do not know figure 5. So I need to find the next figure in the pattern. And then there's something else up in the purple box that's asking me. So not only do I need to find the next figure, but there's something else that is asking me. Look up at that purple box. What else is it asking me? Yep. So it also wants to know how we can describe the pattern. And describe doesn't mean, oh, it's circles. Okay, we know it's circles, but how, what else? Just like in ELA, we want you to be as specific as possible, use as many details as possible. It wants to know how we can describe this pattern. So those are the two things that we need to find, and we didn't get that out of nowhere. We didn't pull that from nowhere. We actually looked at the purple box, where these shapes, where these circles are, and it's asking us these two things, so that's what we need to find. So what information do I need to use? All right, guys, what information do we need to use? Yep, I heard all of you yelling. We need to use the pattern. Okay. Oops, sorry. Sometimes I connect my R's and my N's. My class yells at me all the time for that. So we need to use the pattern, and it's the shapes in the pattern specifically. So specifically, we're looking at those circles in the pattern. So what or how will I use the information from the circles in the pattern? How am I going to decide what my next figure is going to be by looking at these circles up here? So what would I do? How will I use the information presented to me in the pattern that they gave me? Yeah, and there's a lot of different ideas here. So you could count the circles. Okay. Look at these figure numbers. Here's figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, figure 4, figure 5. Maybe those figure numbers have something to do with the circles. So use the figure numbers. Oh look, one of my kids is calling me on Teams right in the middle of my math lesson. That's nice that they want to participate in our math lesson. I'm not going to answer it right now though, so let me just ignore that for a second. So we can use the figure numbers to help figure out the next, we can say next piece of the pattern. Okay. And if there's any more that you guys are thinking of that I'm not writing down, I obviously can't hear you. Although I'm sure if you yelled, I could probably hear you. If there's more that you are thinking about that I did not just say right there, please feel free to just write them down, jot them down, get your ideas out. Okay, so now let's look at our pattern here. And I'm kind of going to come around the back. So our first figure right here, figure 1, how many circles does it have? It has 1. Okay, so that makes sense. All right. Well, how about figure 2? Look at figure 2. How many circles does it have? Well, it doesn't have 2, like how that has 1. This does not have 2. This has 4. But how are those circles arranged? Look at it for a second. How are those circles arranged? Yup, shout it out. Come on. So in this figure, we have 2 rows and 2 circles in each row, okay? So here's 1 row, here's 2 rows, here's 1 circle, 2 circles, 1 circle, 2 circles. So in this part of the figure 1, we have 1 circle, 1 row, 1 circle. Figure 2, we have 2 rows, 2 circles. Look at figure 3. What's going on there? Yep. So here's 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows. Here's 1, 2, 3 circles. 1, 2, 3 circles. 1, 2, 3 circles. So figure 3 has 3 rows, 3 circles. Figure 1, 1 row, 1 circle. Figure 2, 2 rows, 2 circles. Figure 3, 3 rows, 3 circles. How about figure 4? What's figure 4? You guys are absolutely right. It's 4 rows. 1 row, 2 row, 3 row, 4 row. 4 rows. And how many are in each row? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So figure 1, we have 1 row, 1 circle. Figure 2, 2 rows, 2 circles. Figure 3, 3 rows, 3 circles. Figure 4, 4 rows, 4 circles. What should figure 5 look like? What should figure 5 look like? Staying with that same pattern. So if 4 has 4 rows, 4 circles, figure 5 should look like, yep, I'm hearing it. It should be 5 rows. And how many circles in each row? 5, absolutely. Sorry, my circles are all over the place here for some reason. Okay, so figure 1, 1 row, 1 circle. Figure 2, 2 rows, 2 circles. Figure 3, 3 rows, 3 circles. Figure 4, 4 rows, 4 circles. Figure 5, 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many circles in each row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 rows, 5 circles. So this is the next shape in your pattern. So we did just solve the problem. We did have the answer. But now, can we describe the pattern? How would we describe the pattern? So this question right here, describe the pattern. What could we say here? And there might be a lot of different ways that you guys say this, okay? But what can you tell me about this pattern? The figure number, this figure number right here, what does that match? Yep, so I would say something like the figure number is the same as the number of rows and the number of circles in each row. Ooh, guys, my writing is awful, and I apologize. I have not perfected writing lopsided on a whiteboard yet, but we're working on it. So that would be everything for that chart on the top, on that, pretty much the whole page of 518. But there is 2 questions underneath that I want to answer, okay? So number 1 says, use the figures to write a number pattern, then describe the pattern in the numbers. Use the figures to write a number pattern. They're talking about these figures up here. What could we do there? Well, let's look at it. Use the figures to write a number pattern. All right. So how many circles are in figure 1? Yep, 1. How many are in figure 2? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. How many are in figure 3? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many are in figure 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And how many are in figure 5? 25, right? Okay. So this is how many circles are in each of these figures. So let's look and see if we can figure out what the pattern is. All right, so how can we get from 1 to 4? And I know some of you are like, oh, 1 times 4 is 4. And you're absolutely right. But if you do, most patterns have the rule is the same between the numbers. So if we were saying 1 times 4 is 4, that means my rule would be multiplied by 4. Is 4 times 4 9? No, it's not. So we know it's not multiplication. The only other way that we can get our numbers bigger is by adding. So 1 plus what is 4? You're right. So this one, we're adding 3. Okay, 1 plus 3 is 4. Well, let's look at this guy. How did we get from 4 to 9? You're right. We added 5. Well, how did we get from 9 to 16? 9 plus what gives me 16? You're correct again. Plus 7. How did we get from 16 to 25? $16 plus what is 25? Absolutely. We are adding 9. Okay, so look at these numbers down here. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. What did we do? What are we doing with those? What are we increasing? Well, 3, 5, 7, 9. We're going up by what every time we add? Twos. So this is counting by twos. 3, 5, 7, 9. Counting by twos. So that would be our number pattern. And describe the pattern in the numbers. So we are describing the pattern. So what would we say? We are adding, I'm going to go over here and right over here so you guys can see it. So we are adding 3, 5, 7, 9. The numbers we are adding in the pattern are increasing in multiples of 2. So these guys right here, so these are increasing by 2 each time. Okay? So if we were continuing with this, 3, 5, 7, 9, we're going up by 2s, we would have to add 11 to 25 to get our next shape if we needed to up here. Okay? So we are increasing by 2 each time. The numbers, not these numbers, okay? How we are adding, the circles that we are adding up here are increasing down here by 2. So we're adding 3, then adding 5, then adding 7, then adding 9. Okay? Sometimes that can be a little bit confusing, especially wording it, because you obviously saw I just had a tough time wording it myself. But if you were to just draw this on your paper, we know what you mean by that. All right, so that was number 1. Now number 2 says, it wants us to kind of make a prediction. Number 2 says, what would the 10th number in our pattern be? The 10th number. Well, we know the 5th figure has 5 rows, 5 circles. So if we are doing the 10th number, okay, we're looking at the 10th number, or the 10th figure, how many rows would it be? If it's going up like this, 4 rows, 4 circles, 5 rows, 5 circles, 6 rows, 6 circles, 7 rows, 7 circles, 8 rows, 8 circles, 9 rows, 9 circles, it would be what? So the 10th number would be 10 rows and 10 circles in each. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so what's 10 times 10? If there's 10 rows and 10 circles in each. Yep. It would be 100. Your number, your 10th number would be 100. As long as the pattern kept going like this, which it should have, which it should be. All right, friends, so that is page 588. 587 is the same kind of question. The pattern is a little bit simpler. And it gives you a lot more of the words on there. So I wanted to do this one because it was more of an on your own thing. So I wanted to do this one with you just so you get an idea of what a pattern is. And this is a tougher one of the patterns in this chapter. So 587 should be fairly simple for you. It's using trapezoid and triangle blocks. And if you look at 589, those patterns, don't just look at the shapes in those patterns, okay? Just how here we couldn't just look at just the circles. We had to look at the figures too and what those numbers were. Make sure you remember that with shapes, there's also sides to the shapes, and the sides can be a part of the pattern as well. So always keep that in mind, especially on page 589. Now 590 is using some pictures of different vehicles, okay? And there is a tricky question on here, so I want you to be prepared for number 5. And, always be sure you are contacting your specific teacher if you have questions, okay? Because number 5 can be a little bit tricky on page 590. And like normal, 591 and 592 are just doing different pattern questions where it wants you to tell us the next shape in a pattern. And number 3 on page 591, it says find a pattern in your classroom. Describe and extend the pattern. Obviously, we're not in school, so see if you can find a pattern at home. And if you can find a pattern at home, how can you continue the pattern? How would you continue the pattern? And if you don't see any patterns at home, make up your own. Draw some shapes down there on number 3 and see if you can create your own pattern, okay? All right, and again, guys, make sure that you are contacting your specific teacher if you need help. I figured the best way for me to do this would be to give you an example of a problem. And if you are nervous or don't understand this one specifically, always just remember my wording is a little odd here, but we're adding by 2. So we're going up by 2 each time. So 3, 5, 7, 9. So 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. And that is how these numbers are increasing, okay? So keep that in mind. That's what the increasing by 2 each time means. It's not really these numbers that are increasing by 2. It's these guys. All right? So please contact your specific teacher if you need help. And that is the end of Chapter 10. I will be back soon with Chapter 13, which you should have gotten in the mail. Either next week, the end of May. You should have it by the end of May, and if you don't, please contact your specific teacher as well, okay? And I will be back doing area and perimeter. I will see you then.